This video is my second film study preview of the Ravens' trip to Buffalo to take on the Bills in Week 1 of the NFL season. I'm going to try to alternate these film study previews whereby focus on the Ravens offense in one preview video and then the Ravens defense in a second one. This particular video is about something that I believe is foundational for the Bills offense. What percentage of their offense is it? I would estimate between 20 and 22%, somewhere in that range. It's essentially an 11 personnel run formation that allows the Bills' offensive line, and the running backs for that matter, to be very physical and the overall offensive scheme to be efficient. It's not just one play here, to be honest with you. It's a sequence of plays that the Bills used in 2024 to control the ball, sometimes play in a more conservative manner, and create as many 3rd and 2 situations as possible, leading to either high percentage conversion opportunities or possibly a 4th down situation where they choose to go for it. The point is, this is to focus on an aspect of the Bills' run game out of 11 personnel that is somewhat different from the rest of the 11 personnel run-heavy teams in the NFL. Talking about like the Rams, for example. This is somewhat Rams-esque at times, but in 2024, this involved them utilizing Mack Hollins, number 13, a big physical wide receiver as a 3rd wide receiver, but essentially a pseudo tight end at times in terms of where they lined him up and what they expected him to do, essentially using him as a blocker at the point of attack. Generally, these schemes I'm going to show you are coming out of a formation that I would call Trey. This first one considered to be just like an establishing shot. I think this is a 2nd and 1 from the second quarter of the Bills' win over the Ravens in the AFC Divisional Round playoffs last year. It's 11 personnel. And so I would say that this play, this particular concept that is shown, is a foundational aspect of what they do. The jab and the cross, if you will. So what I just made a triangle of is between 2 receivers and then 1 tight end. So it's an 11 personnel setup by the offense, and that typically that elicits a 4-2-5 defensive personnel from NFL defensive coordinators 90 to 95% of the time. And in fact, that's what you're going to see in this video. That doesn't mean that they're going to line up the same way every time on defense. It just means that that's the personnel that's going to be utilized. What they really want to do is create a mess of things here to the tight end wing side. And in fact, I believe that sometimes they want to draw out or elicit from you, the defense, an overreaction to that side because James Cook has such great cut ability and really spectacular vision, if you ask me. They rely on the fact that if you overcompensate over here, where the Trey side of the formation is going to be, Cook is really good at bringing run plays back. And in particular, I think they want you to line up with a 1 and a 5 away from that Trey side. In any case, one thing to notice too, and I'll show more illustrations of this in this video, but in future film study previews, Josh Allen often points at the nickel defender when Mack Hollins is in. So this is the Trey side here. By the way, the blue line I'll try to put is the midline of the formation. In this case, it's on the left hash for the offense, right hash for the defense. So the wide side of the field is over here, and the boundary is to our right-hand side or the left-hand side for the offense. It's the same play. It's a short yardage situation. So it's a great short yardage play, first of all, because it's safe. You can get James Cook an opportunity to read things, get him moving downhill, essentially untouched to the line of scrimmage or even beyond it. In this case, Roquan Smith, pretty violent finish here, along with, I think it's Michael Pierce on, like I said, a 2nd and 1. Move to some Seahawks footage, and the Trey side has flipped here, just so you know if you're unfamiliar. The Trey side is up here, so that the 2 receivers and the tight end are to the top side of our screen, the left-hand side of the offense. And in this case, Seattle is trying to match with their three defensive backs. So up here, you've got this matching almost. Sometimes it indicates man of 3-on-3. 3 of the defensive backs in a 4-2-5 personnel grouping are matching the tight end and the 2 receivers to the left side of the offense, the top side of our screen. Pretty unique little blitz here that the Seahawks are using. I'll kind of diagram it from the end zone angle. But this is basically what the Bills want, is to be able to give Cook the opportunity to maybe take this front side downhill or bring it back, wind it back through the B gap. And one thing I noticed is some of the teams later in the season were giving them a 3 away from the Trey side. So I'll show you what I mean by that once we get to the end zone angle. This is a really nice play by Byron Murphy and a cool stunt by the Seahawks, if you ask me, that just kind of shows awareness. Typically, teams are lining up with a 1 in the A gap and a 5, like you see with Derek Hall. In this case, Seattle is giving them a 3 in the case of Leonard Williams and a 5 away from the Trey side. Really cool stuff here that the Seahawks do with Murphy and also the inside linebacker, Ernest Jones IV. So Murphy's actually going to step out to the left tackle Dolphins, who gets kind of shocked in his chest with this one, and then Jones is going to blitz through the A gap. Now look, the Bills' left guard and left tackle, they picked this up well, if you ask me. Dawkins immediately has his eyes to the inside because that's where his linebacker's taking him. And so he steps to Murphy, and then the left guard takes over Jones. But it's a really nice punch, if you ask me, by Murphy on Dawkins, first of all. And then second of all, you also have Jones, who's since left Seattle's team, has really displaced Dawkins, knocked him off of his frame. And so Murphy's going to be able to redirect to get out here to Cook and make the tackle for a short gain. It's a 3-on-3 out on the edge, and that's what I want to kind of illustrate or point out to you, is the way that Seattle's trying to play this with their 3 defensive backs is somewhat similar to the way that I described it with the Ravens, in that you want to match the tight end and the 2 receivers to one side, and occasionally that can open you up for to essentially overcompensate to that side and allow James Cook and other running backs to beat you to the weak side of the formation. A little bit of a different concept here. It's not downhill run to the Trey side, but here's the Trey side, okay? Tight end, receiver. Now, sometimes Mac Hollins will walk in here and almost be in between the tackle and the tight end. Still call it Trey because it's a tightly aligned group and it's not in bunch. Ball is on the left hash for the offense, so the boundary, the short side, is to the left, and the wide side is to the bottom of our screen to the offense's right. Very Rams-esque stuff here, if you ask me. Hollins motioning across, and then instead of the run concept going against the grain of that jet motions, I would call this jet follow, meaning the jet motion goes to the left side of the offense, and the initial run flow for Cook also goes to the left side of the offense. One thing that I want to point out, I don't know all of the offensive linemen that are back. In my opinion, that's the best guy right there that I see in terms of athleticism and execution. That's the right tackle, 79. But one thing I will say is, out of these 11 personnel groupings, particularly Trey formation, these guys really get out on top of people quickly. And it's not just the Seahawks game that I have film of. I have both Ravens games from last year, 2 AFC East opponents, one against the Jets. I think the other one was against the Patriots in the last game of the season. So I don't know if it's a little different because the Bills sat out a lot of starters. But this really suits, if you ask me, James Cook, because he's got great vision and he's got great agility to be able to take this wherever it's called for based upon the blocking scheme and how the defense responds. It's a very rare missed tackle for Julian Love, who I consider to be one of the better safeties in the NFL. And in my opinion, this is a foundational play that, for you as a fan, when you see the Bills line up in this type of alignment, whether it's 11 personnel or 12 or jumbo 12, which I'll show you in a moment, be prepared for some type of run concept, whether it's the downhill duo stuff where the quarterback opens to the side of the tight end wing. Again, we're talking about over here, the Trey side, or whether it's the jet follow where he's running away, or some type of jet to one side and then dive going in the opposite direction, which I really don't think I have that play in this cut-up. Not the same alignment by the Seahawks, so they didn't match these 3 with 3 defensive backs. They're essentially in a 2-high structure here because the ball is on the hash. The idea for the foundational aspect of this is that Cook has almost a 3-way go. He can kind of hit it, downhill. He can kind of maybe bounce it outside a little bit or wind it back against the grain. Oftentimes it comes all the way back to this backside B gap. I feel like they do a really nice job as an offensive line on the backside of these. That's not the play that occurs here, to be honest with you. The breakdown here is, or what I should say is the great job to illustrate for the Bills is this is the center taking on the will linebacker. So we're talking about here, getting up to here, the will linebacker into the boundary, and really expanding the will such that 97, the nose tackle, is the only guy who can possibly do anything, and he's not able to get Cook to the ground or stop his force at all. And then Julian Love, like I said, rare missed tackle for me. I know that he had more missed tackles that people would probably not categorize as rare, but he's a really good football player who I think is exceptional at damn near everything. Don't get me wrong, Cook and the offensive line effectiveness, they play a huge role in this, right? But to me, the personnel grouping and the formation are equally valuable or equally important. Essentially, we're talking about the scheme allows the Bills to churn out extra yards and create more high percentage opportunities on third and even fourth down. These concepts can be, equally effective out of the shotgun. So far, I've focused on the under center run game, and in fact, that's what first drew my attention to this in the offseason, and even watching the two matchups between the Ravens and the Bills last year. In this case, you've got another bunch set, two receivers and a tight end here. The only difference is Hollins is the point man, so he's on the line versus the tight end who's off. You are going to have motion across. It's very similar to a jet follow, the one that I showed with Hollins going in motion. We would call it fast motion if the quarterback is in the shotgun. But in any case, this is perfect setup, man, for Cook. He's really good at this weaving through the defense. And I have to mention, one of the best offensive linemen that I have got a chance to watch film of in the offseason is this guy right here. I think it's Brown, number 79. And when you get the end zone angle, hopefully you'll be able to appreciate it as much as I do. Watch him come off of this block and get up to Ernest Jones IV. I'm kind of slowing this down so you can see it occur. And then it just creates this small little window for Cook to weave his way through and end up with a pretty big gain. The end zone angle, I think, will do a little bit more appreciation or justice to it, I should say. We're going to talk about this combo here from to the D tackle up to the linebacker number 13. By the right tackle, like I said, I think it's Brown. I know the left tackle gets a lot of attention. I just find this guy to be a lot quicker, a lot more athletic, and certainly better at getting to the second level after making contact with someone on a combo block, in this case, a defensive tackle, Byron Murphy. Moving up to the second level of the defense, Jones, and like I showed from the all-22 angle, that's exactly where Cook winds through here. Really committed job of blocking from everyone, but I do wonder or speculate what this is going to look like in 2025 without Hollins, because he is one of the guys, he's one of the guys from a wide receiver standpoint that blocks consistently well at the point of attack or even behind it. That's Devin Witherspoon that he's dealing with, who's an absolute badass football player. Hollins, big, physical, 6'3", 225. I think they will miss him. To what extent, I'm not sure. Back to the playoff game between the Ravens and the Bills, and you can see they've responded with their nickel 4-2-5. So two inside linebackers, Roquan Smith, and an inside linebacker, Chris Board, who since left them, and then five defensive backs, right? In many cases, you're talking about Marlon Humphrey being the nickel defender for the Ravens, and the Bills have motioned over to set up their Trey set. In this case, it's to the field. And this is going to be an example of the motion going one way and the run action going the other. So you got jet motion to the top side and then toss coming back to us. And this is where the Bills shine, if you ask me, is at this tight end wing side or the Trey side when the second wide receiver is here. In this case, Mac Hollins is motioned away. They are spectacular at being able to move laterally and try to gain position on you as a defense and prevent people from getting there to gang tackle. Now, in this case, it ends up being a really nice job by, I think it's Broderick Washington, the backside defensive tackle. Maybe there's small hands to the face right here, but the hands come off quick enough. Washington fights through it and makes a one-on-one tackle. You just don't see a whole lot of gang tackles out in space. They almost, if you ask me, they being the Bills, are almost playing their own game physically out of 11 personnel. That's drastically different from most other teams. Switching the receivers around, so it's interesting to me how this came about. Hollins over to the left, certainly not an X wide receiver guy. not really a huge pass threat either, to be honest with you. And then now you've got the Trey set up over here. The difference is this is jumbo 12 personnel. So jumbo means you have a sixth offensive lineman on the field. So the Ravens are no longer in their nickel set. They're in their base 3-4. So that means 3 interior linemen, these 3 here, 2 outside linebackers, and then 2 inside linebackers as part of their 3-4 structure. And in this case, with the Trey set to the bottom side of our screen, the right side of the offense, the Ravens have dropped the strong safety, Kyle Hamilton, down to the field. And it ends up being on the wrong side. And you'll see the manipulation that Josh Allen and the offense can bring out and show. Basically, if you outnumber them to one particular side, they can run it to the other. Because out of this set, I believe Josh Allen is really good at getting up to the line of scrimmage, looking at the defense, in this case, seeing maybe Kyle Hamilton roll down to the field, and then running it to the boundary, essentially away from wherever we have the +1 defender. I don't know that necessarily happened on this particular play. I'm more so speaking in a general sense. Just so you know, this is the jumbo tight end number 70. I think his last name's Anderson. So essentially he's a 6th offensive lineman on the field, but he's reported as eligible. And in fact, they have him lined up outside of the initial tight end. What the Bills, out of 11 personnel, I think specialize in is creating these 4 or even 5-man surfaces. So there you've got guard and tackle, typical tight end. I think it's Knox who's been there forever. That's a 3-man surface. Anderson is the 4th guy, and then oftentimes it's Hollins, in some cases a different receiver, is a 5th player to one side. That's called a 5-man surface. So they're just trying to create more lanes than you as a defense can cover against the run. And again, this is you may have a hold here on this backside. Certainly, and he does this a lot. Dawkins does this a lot. He takes his outside of hands and wraps, and it's slow mode a little bit, so maybe it looks worse than it was in live time. But he's really exceptional at latching on to people with outside hands and somehow not getting called for a hold. But in any case, over here, watch the combo that occurs by 79, the same right tackle that I talked about. He's going to combo up, and he's going to get the Roquan. And this offensive lineman, I think it's the center, but I could be wrong, has sealed off the backside inside linebacker, which is Chris Board. So once the center seals off Board and 79 works his way to Roquan, there's really a huge lane there. Roquan's kind of on an island here. That's a tremendously agile block, if you ask me. Let me float through it a couple of times, full speed so you can see it. Jones is cut off. Matabike is on the backside of it. Hamilton is I don't want to say lined up wrong, but Hamilton, where we lined him up to the field, the ball ends up going to the opposite side. Very next snap, jumbo 12 personnel again. It's going to look similar to some of the other plays because they motion Howlands over to create, you guessed it, another Trey set to the bottom side of the screen. Let me pull this back a little bit. So the base 3-4 structure is right here. Except the Ravens, are in man now, so Wiggins is on Hollins. We're probably omitting this guy from the coverage completely because they're not going to throw the ball to him. He's there to block, and in many cases, I should say, he's there to pass pro. It's jumbo 12 personnel once again. So once they motion over, we bring Wiggins over, and out of our base 3-4 structure, we've got Hamilton and Wiggins on the same side. So you can probably already guess what I'm setting up. Where are they going to run the ball this time? To the other side, away from Hamilton. I'm not saying it's all away from Hamilton, but it certainly seems like wherever you outnumber them, then Josh Allen gets the play call to the opposite side. Just smart quarterbacking, right? It's a zone run concept to the top side. One of the things that I've noticed about our defense is that we have a guy who just doesn't get scooped and doesn't get reached, and that's Matabike. He's almost too good at it. And what I mean is, you can't beat him to the play side. So this is a center trying to beat him, and Matabike's running the guy out of there. You can see Matabike's helmet ends up on this side. There's this huge lane because our other defensive tackles are just not as good at Matabike at moving laterally. You almost would like to see him play this on the back door. What I mean is allow the center to get to the outside of him, essentially hook or reach him, and then Matabike play underneath of it. On this particular snap, you can see that would work out well. It wouldn't, be ubiquitous, it wouldn't be all-encompassing and work on every single snap. My point is Matabike doesn't get reached, nor does he get scooped, and other defensive tackles do, and that can create a huge 2 or even 3 gap lane like it kind of does on this play. Again, if you want to focus on Brown, the right tackle, the Bills often seem to utilize this Trey set to his side. I'm not sure if that's, intentional or if it's just where the ball is, but actually running away from him or running from the Trey side. And again, if you want to focus on Madubuike for a moment, what I'm talking about is he doesn't allow the center to get to this side of him and cut him off, such that perhaps the running back, if that occurs, would just keep going in this direction, right, and beat us to the outside. Madubuike is really good at getting to the front side. In this case, he's kind of run himself out of the play. And you guessed it, I'm going to talk about 79, cutting off Travis Jones on the backside. The combination of those two things occurring, Madubuike getting to the front side, and then this combo happening with the right tackle and the right guard, 79 scooping Travis Jones, taking him over, if you will, and then 64 getting out to Roquan, creates a huge lane between Travis Jones and Madubuike. If we had both guys going underneath, essentially what Travis Jones is doing, then maybe we'd be okay and Roquan could flow over the top. Simplistically, that's a simple explanation. If the frontside guy wins and the backside guy gets scooped or loses, you end up with this huge lane like you see here that any running back can cut through, let alone some of the running backs that the Bills have like Ty Johnson and James Cook. I know this was probably not an exciting topic for a video. I've decided to separate or cut up the previews in a manner that's a little bit more digestible. 15, 18 minutes is the goal. I think this is a large piece of the Bills puzzle, to be honest with you. And I recognize that other people will have a different opinion. We've got to be able to cover the receivers. We've got to be able to contain Josh Allen, which I thought we did a pretty good job of last year for the most part. We've got to be able to limit big plays. I'm talking about our matchups with them. This 11 personnel run game allows them to generate yards consistently and be conservative. Essentially, don't turn the football over while generating as many 3rd and 2s as they can. 2 4-yard gains creates a 3rd and 2. When they're willing to play 4-down football, go for it on 4th and 1 or 4th and inches, it makes everything so manageable for Josh Allen. I think it simplified the game for them in 2024, and it's somewhat similar to what the Eagles do, to be honest with you. A willingness to play 4-down football, but somewhat separate from the way that the Detroit Lions do it. The Detroit Lions go for a lot of 4th and 3s or 4th and 4s. And they are willing to run the ball there, don't get me wrong. But so many of these Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts 4th down run plays, they're quarterback sneaks, right? The tush push. It's a very different game that the Bills are playing out of 11 personnel in these formations. Am I telling you that every time they go 11 personnel, this is what they're going to do? No. I'm trying to give you a heads up as a fan when you see the game in week 1. I think it's on Sunday night. And they line up in a Trey formation. It's either going to be 11 personnel or it's going to be jumbo 12. It's very rarely actually 12 personnel, so 70 is certainly not a pass threat at all. This isn't an option-based offense. This isn't a jet sweep-based offense. They're basically outnumbering you, the defense, either by formation or the offensive line's ability to block stuff laterally or inside zone stuff and get you moving a little bit more vertically. Basically, I think they've carved out a really nice portion of their offense here that is less reliant on Josh Allen, right? He can certainly get things. He can make spectacular plays, runs, throws, avoid sacks, and punish you for that. But this is a way for them to create manageable 3rd downs that they could convert at a high percentage anyway, independent of Josh Allen. And that's why I say this is a big piece of their offense. They can limit turnovers, really limit negative yard plays at all, and hand Josh Allen a whole bunch of high percentage opportunities. I like the scheme, even though it's a pain to watch for real. I think we could have done a better job last year in the playoffs at identifying ways to line up. I tried to show you a couple of plays that I thought were indicative of things that happened when we overcompensated to one side. Josh Allen they ran it to the other. Whether Josh Allen checked to it or not, a couple of them it didn't appear to. Maybe they just happened to be in the right call. I think that numbers-wise, we got to be squared away, balanced up, if you will, to both sides. For you, the fan, when you see Trey under center, Josh Allen under center, and one receiver to one side, you can reliably say, okay, the tight end and whoever else is eligible is over to the other side. And, sometimes one of their receivers will stack behind the tackle, kind of create a weird bunch look, and that's an even more run-heavy formation or run-heavy appearance, if you ask me. This is a control feature of their offense that gets them into scoring position with less risk involved. And so for me, I would say, like I said earlier, it's 22 to maybe 20 to 22 or maybe 25% of their offense is predicated on this type of stuff that doesn't risk incompletions. You can't get pressure on the quarterback. You really can't get pressure on the running back because of how compressed everything is. You've got to be willing to limit them to a 2-yard gain and not try to make a spectacular play. And I think their numbers from 2024 offensively really bear that out, right? They only turned the football over 9 times. They were, I think, only 7th in the league at third down conversions in 2024, like 44.3% or 44.2, somewhere in that area. They had actually led the NFL in third down conversions in 2025. A lot of similar film or similar scheme stuff is there. They seem to be more reliant on this 11 personnel run game, in my opinion, especially in our rematch in Buffalo, the playoff loss. In any case, I'm trying to separate the previews into smaller chunks. Feel free to let me know if you enjoy the previews being that way. I'm not just going to focus on the quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. So if that's what you're looking for, just probably go somewhere else, or maybe they're going to focus on that. I'm going to try to cover as many aspects of this rematch as possible. I think these are two great teams, very evenly matched, and I believe the Ravens have got to focus on stopping Cook, Johnson, and all the running backs out of 11 personnel in a significant and a serious manner. Appreciate you guys' time. If you enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comments section. And then finally, if you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this film study preview with some commentary, albeit, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.